Thank you, Mr. President. Brothers, sisters, friends, enemies, and neutrals. This is my last time to speak on this bill. To give you a surge of pleasure, a point will be reached in a few months when I will tell you this is the last time I will speak on the floor of this legislature. You won't even have to restrain your mirth and your delight because I won't be able to get back at you. And you will like that day. There will be such a shout of joy in Nebraska. It will register on the Richter scale as an 8. And people in California will say, we didn't know they had earthquakes in Nebraska. And somebody will say, well, they don't. They say, well, what is all this activity on this seismograph? And they say, oh, well, they got rid of a guy that they didn't like. And they'll say, who, the reincarnation of Jack the Ripper? And the answer will come back, no, compared to him, Jack the Ripper was a saint who was so good he could go to heaven without dying. And they say, well, who was this terrible fellow? Then they would be asked, have you ever read any of the Harry Potter? And the person would say, yeah, I read 1 or 2, and I've seen 1 or 2 movies. Do you remember a character in there whose name could not be uttered? They say, because when you whisper, other people whisper, they say, yeah. And then the Nebraskan would say, we dare not utter his name. Isn't that foolish? Nebraska changed their constitution to get rid of this gray-haired, short gentleman. Change the Constitution. Whom can I harm? Whose home in this chamber or anywhere in this state can I take? Whose job can I take? Whose children can I take? Whose life am I going to take? So then why is there the hatred? That's Nebraska. And they demonstrated. I not only own this legislature, I own this state. When I can get people to vote against their best interests, I own them. And it'd be in the interest of people in a state to cripple the only branch that represents the people directly. But I caused them to do that. There was a fellow on the radio who learned this Eastern secret. That's where all the secrets came from. He could cloud men's minds. It didn't say women. Cloud men's minds so they could not see him. So these people are so blinded by their hatred and their ignorance that they will change their constitution to get rid of one man who, contrary to what I've suggested, is not going to live forever. Unless the world comes to an end during my lifetime, they all check out at the same time. Think about some of these things, but you won't. And when I'm not here, you don't even have to hear these things anymore. You can finish a 60-day session in 30 days and you pass 10 times as many bills. A 90-day session in 45 days and you'll pass 20 times as many bills. The thickness of your law books will increase exponentially each session of the legislature. And nobody will know what's in them, including you all, who will introduce the bills and vote to pass them into law. Because, just because. Mr. President, I want to withdraw that pending motion.
The motion is withdrawn. Mr. Clerk, next item on the desk.
Schimmick. Voting no, Sir Stutzman. Voting yes, Sir Sinowicki. Voting yes, Sir Wallman. Voting yes, Sir White. Voting yes, Sir Whiteman. Voting yes. 46 ayes, 2 nays, 1 excused and not voting, Mr. President.
Members, we will wait the required time required for since the motion to dispense with the at-large reading was adopted, we will wait the 2 minutes remaining until the vote is closed. So we will wait that timeline. Thank you.
Voting, Mr. President.
LB 367 passes with the emergency clause attached. We will now proceed to LB 367A.
Mr. President, with respect to 367A, Senator Chambers has a motion with respect to the bill. Senator Chambers would move to return the bill to select file for specific amendment, specifically floor amendment 99.
Senator Chambers, you're recognized to open on your motion to return LB 367A to select file for a specific amendment.
Mr. President, members of the legislature, I'm back. Now let me tell y'all what just happened. You see something a great way off, and you plot, and you scheme, and you say, how can I make a point for my colleagues, which they may not think to make? I and Senator Shimmick, and sometimes one or two others on occasion, will always vote against suspending the rules so as not to read a bill. When that motion is successful, the board stays open for a specified number of minutes. By asking for a roll call vote, the vote was taken immediately. And although the vote had been taken, the board had to be kept open for that amount of time. So see, I taught you another lesson today, didn't I? Had any of you all thought of that? You don't have to, because when you got old people running around here, they're supposed to show you something, aren't they? When I had children who were small, my job was to try to put things in front of them so they'd know more after that than they knew before. It didn't mean anything that I knew more than my children. I ought to know. Human beings require a large number of years, Senator Stootman, to mature and reach adulthood because they learn slowly. And I suppose there are many things that they need to learn, but they need a teacher. And as some people will say, their children's first teachers were the parents. They have an obligation to teach their children the best they know how, so that those children can make it through the world. Your world is this legislative chamber. There are rules that govern what you do. You can read a rule and see the words but not get their full impact. And when things are done by rote, routinely, you don't think beyond what is done to consider what may be done, what is possible to be done under these rules, and then what must be done under these rules. Our rule book is not a quarter of an inch thick, maybe a quarter of an inch thick, but there is a lot in those rules. And when you're outnumbered, if you know the rules, they can come to your aid, and you will not always prevail. If you're situated as I am, you hardly ever will prevail. But you don't quit. And as you're taking and absorbing your periodic but regular thrashings, you make them work to do it. They know because they've got the numbers, and they're sheep, and they're going to clump together because they're angry, that ultimately what they want will happen. But they dread having to run that gauntlet. And I will make you all run the gauntlet. And I won't get tired before you do. My role is entirely different here from yours. Mine is to survive. And mine is to survive in a hostile environment. And since I know that is what I'm faced with, I'm prepared to do what is necessary to survive. You're here to please people. You're here to win the election next time. You're here to get along with your party and carry out the dictates of those you fear or those you like or those who feed you. when you stay here late. But you're hard-headed. Wonder Woman, as I call her, handed out one of the best memos that I had seen in a long time, which explained why the term or the expression, "I yield time to the chair," is utilized. Not in a body such as this. We don't yield time back to the chair. There is not time accumulating in the chair into which people tap into. When you get through talking, you just let the chair know you're through, like I do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers.
But I'm not through yet. And then you all sit down, but I stand up. The quickness of the chair in that instance is some of the lubricant that makes this system flow smoothly. You need that. A sense of humor is something that they pointed out that the Pope had. I don't know if Benedict XVI, Joseph Ratzinger, Cardinal, has a sense of humor. I haven't satisfied myself yet as to whether he's got sense, but I'm going to give him time. Abraham Lincoln had a sense of humor. I was telling somebody something he wrote that I really treasure. And if I've told you this before, it'll bear repeating, and this time you might remember it. Parson and Abraham Lincoln's day, they had these nutty people who could tell you when the end of the world was coming, how long human beings had been here, when the millennium was coming, who the Antichrist is, and all such things, all this crazy stuff. So one of them wrote a book like that and gave it to Abraham Lincoln. One of us would take the book and wait till the person's gone and throw it in the trash. But Abraham Lincoln didn't want to offend anybody, and he was very gracious. He once said he wished that he had maybe diphtheria or scarlet fever or something. Then he'd have something to give to everybody. Because everybody who approached him asked him for something. Hello, Mr. President, give me a nickel. Hey, Honest Abe, give me a job. So Abraham Lincoln got this book. And his cabinet members wondered how he was going to get out of this. So he wrote in the book, for all of those who like this kind of book, this is certainly the kind of book that they will like. Abraham Lincoln. And that guy went home walking on a cloud. One time a man came to him and wanted a job as the doorkeeper. And Abraham Lincoln did not want to embarrass the man. He said, have you any experience in doorkeeping? And the fellow said, well, no. Do you know anybody who has had experience in doorkeeping, who has shared that experience with you? Well, no, Mr. Lincoln. Have you read any books on doorkeeping? No, Mr. Lincoln. Well, my good man, said Lincoln, can't you see that you're really not qualified for the job? And the man went away, not offended, but agreeing. He was not qualified, after all, to be the doorkeeper. Now, there's sometimes we will have to engage in lengthy debate, disquisition. Some people might call it ranting and raving to make a point. But there are other times when a pithy statement will go much further than an argument. Abraham Lincoln was on this train campaigning, and white people hated him. Even though Lincoln was a racist and a white supremacist, he didn't think black people should vote, should hold office. He said, I'm like any other person. If one race is to be above the other one, then I want my race to be on top. But they hated him anyway, because he wasn't quite the dyed-in-the-wool hat racist that they were. So this white woman came up to him with what was known as a pickaninny doll. That's a black representation of a black person, which is very demeaning and insulting.
1 minute.
And she walked up to Abraham Lincoln with this doll, and before she could say anything, he said, oh, madam, is that your baby? And the woman turned as red as a beet and slunk away. He could have argued, but he didn't. There are times when I can make a point to you all with a statement. There are other times I have to bludgeon you. There are other times I'll use a meat axe, sometimes a meat cleaver, sometimes a butcher knife, sometimes a paring knife, sometimes a scalpel, sometimes a razor blade. It depends on what the circumstances call for. You all don't have to worry about that. You can just be one way because you're always in the majority. You don't have to think, you don't have to plan, you don't have to do anything. Just be a part of the majority, and life is easy for you. But when you're in a situation where you have to think on your feet.
Time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Members, you've heard the opening on the motion to return LB 367A to select file for a specific amendment, that amendment being Floor Amendment 99. Senator Chambers, your light is first. You're recognized to speak.
Thank you, Mr. President. By saying that my light is first, that suggests that somebody else is up there, but not necessarily, because somebody might be in the wings waiting. I'm exacting my time tax from the body today. As we get deeper into this session, you all are going to begin to understand what I warned you about earlier. All this camaraderie is going to go away because the special interest groups are going to become more insistent that they get what they want, and they're going to pressure you. That being nice to you is over. There's not time for that. Now they give you orders, and you better jump, and you will. The governor will threaten you, and you will respond. And the legislature is not going to get the respect that it should because you don't demand it. How can these people predict with such certitude that the legislature is going to roll over? Reporters speculate about what kind of vetoes the governor is going to impose. How is it that when something is sent over to the governor, it has many more votes than necessary to override a veto? But when he vetoes it, he calls some of you all over there and tells you, you better uphold my veto. Then you come scampering back here, and if we compare the vote that you gave to send the bill over there with the vote you gave on whether or not you should override, you didn't stick by what you claimed to have believed, not only on final reading, but maybe all the way across the board, and you may even have spoken for that. So a red pen in the hand of the governor overcomes all the arguments that you made yourself, all the things you believed in when you voted to send the bill over there. He didn't even propound an argument. He just said, I don't like this, and throws it back in your face, and you buy it. If there were 49 people like me in the legislature and we sent something over there, he wouldn't dare veto it because we would love to have him veto it. And in overriding his veto, we would excoriate him to such an extent that he'd say, it ain't worth it. The legislature did it. Let them live with it. You all aren't going to stand up to him. So he treats you like children, and he dismisses you like children. Go sit in the corner. I forbid any of you to wear those WWED shirts. What would Ernie do? I forbid you to wear one of those shirts. You're not worthy. But if you're nice and come to me, you might can persuade me to grant you a dispensation. How many of you are going to have a shirt like that put out for you? He spoke too soon. His hand went right up, but then when I finished the statement, it came down. You got to wait till the statement's over. And Senator Stootman has his Ernie and Arnie shirt. And he did that long before this WWED. I've told you all this before, too. It's in line with you have to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. The guy was accused of having bitten a man's ear off. So the guy's defense attorney was grilling the only supposed eyewitness. And the lawyer said, what's your name? And he told him.
1
What do
minute.
you do for a living, he told him. You said that you're in possession of knowledge that would justify you in speaking in this trial. The guy said, yes. He said, did you see my client bite the man's ear off? The witness said, no. The lawyer should have stopped. He said, then how can you testify that my client bit the man's ear off? He said, because I saw him spit it out. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em. Is that right? And every gambler knows the secret to surviving, knowing what to throw away and knowing what to keep. You never count your money while you're sitting at the table. There's time enough for counting when the dealing's done. This session is not done yet. Some of you all have had the opportunity to laugh and mock and scoff and think that you won, but the game is not over.
Time.
You're still sitting at the table.
Senator Chan.
Any money from you. And the only reason I'm doing this, not the only reason, but the main reason, is that I do see potential in this new crop of would-be politicians. You engaged in a political process when you ran for the office, but you're not a politician yet. Being a politician involves mastering an art. Being a politician, as I view it, means more than just a member of a political party or running for office. You mastered the art of politics. You are a practitioner of the art of politics, and it is an art. If you learn that art and learn it well, you are better equipped to make it in this world than any other person. I don't care what they've studied. I studied law, and law can prepare you to do a lot of things and make it in a lot of places. But you don't have to do like a politician, where you're dealing on a daily basis with people who half the time don't know what they're talking about. But you still have to work with them, who don't understand anything, but you still have to convince and persuade them, who get tired, who don't like you, who don't like themselves. But you cannot let that get the better of you. You cannot lose heart and be whipped before you start. You have to keep in mind those of you who are not like me. I don't get tired. But those of you who get tired, look around and you see that the ones you are contesting against are as tired as you, if not more so. And if you've ever been in a long foot race and you get toward the end and you get that stitch in your side, the person's got that stitch in his side too, because you're running basically side by side. If you can, in your mind, make your body come to your aid and put on what they call a kick and run a little faster, you will usually take the heart out of whoever you're running against. And that ends the race right there. That person will finish the race but will not overtake you and will not even attempt to, because he's convinced that you have a lot more in your tank than what he's got, and he knows he cannot do what you're doing. Around here, you can tell when people are losing it, when they can't focus anymore, and that's when you do what you want to do, whatever it happens to be. And as time goes on, you're going to figure these things out, and you'll see when these situations arise. And some of you are going to become, as much as you can in 8 years, masterful at politicking, but you won't be a master politician. You won't come here like I did. I hit the ground running when I came here, and I took on who was supposed to be the most feared member of the legislature. His name was Terry Carpenter. And I clashed with him the very first day that I was here. And he and I became very, very fond of each other. Some people would even call it friends. I was one of those. He left the request to serve as a pallbearer. Terry Carpenter had a sense of humor. In death, Terry Carpenter did what all the Christian preachers, all the Jewish rabbis, all of the non-believers couldn't do. He had a man named Dick Feldman, a Jew, a man named Chuck Davy, a Presbyterian or a Methodist. I meant a Protestant. Bernice Lebed's a Catholic. and Ernie Chambers, a black man who believed none of the white people's religion. And he had all four of us in that small space around a coffin cooperating to achieve a common goal. Nobody could bring those four elements together like that, and Terry did it as a dead man. Now that lets you know the kind of fellow that he was and why I regretted to see him leave here. You all will never meet Terry Carpenter, because wherever Terry Carpenter went, y'all won't go there. Y'all are not made of what Terry Carpenter was made. If he's going up there, y'all going down. If he went down, y'all, well, I don't know where you'll go. But I'm not going to take this motion to a vote either. I'm exacting my tax time. Just to remind you all that if I promise you something, I will deliver on it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Chambers. Senator Chambers, there are no lights on. You're recognized to close on the motion to return LB 367A to select file.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the legislature, I do not expect to carry this to a vote as I stated. Look how much time I've taken. Examine yourself. How tired are you? How much would you like being someplace else? I talked to you all about a song by Billy Joel, The Piano Man. John at the bar is a friend of mine. He'll serve up drinks for free. He's quick with a joke. He'll light up your smoke. But there's someplace he'd rather be. I changed that a little bit to say there's someplace else he'd rather be. And that's you all right now. You'd rather be someplace else. But you can't be. You're seated because you have to be. You're a captive audience. I see some of you all shifting your position. You know why I recognize that? Because when I was a small lad in church, Senator Carlson, Parson, I went to church more in my first 12 years than you will go in your whole life. I wore wool trousers of the kind that were prickly and sticky and made you itch. And I suffered on hot summer Sunday afternoons for the Lord. A kid who hadn't offended anybody enough to be subjected to that. And I sweated because there was no air conditioning, no fan. They would raise the windows and put these little window screens in that you could slide and then put the window back down to the top of that screen. And you got these cardboard fans with a wooden handle from The Undertaker. And that's what you do. All you do is disturb the air a little bit. And if a fly came buzzing and you got enough energy, you just kind of take a swipe at the fly, not to hit him, but just to let him know that something is living here. And if you get too close and stay too long, it'll get you even as lethargic as it is. I suffered so much that if there were a heaven, I could go. But there is no heaven, Parson. There is no heaven. But you all think there is. But I don't think you believe that. Because if you believed it, you would conduct yourself in such a way that you'd go there. If you thought there were a hell to which you would go for disobeying your Lord, why would you disobey Him like you do? If you knew there was somebody outside that chamber with a pistol and he'd blow away the first person who went out there, you'd either tell the state troopers to do something, or you certainly wouldn't be the first one to go out there. Yet you worship somebody who you say, and who you believe, some of you, will put you in fire and burn you there forever. You fear this person with a gun more than you fear that one? How much easier would it be to score some points with that one? What could be easier than ministering to the needs of a child, to an elderly person, to a sick person, to somebody who is homeless, to somebody who is poor? That's all you have to do, and you won't do it. Then you're going to tell me that I should believe in what you believe in? And without believing in what you claim to believe in, those are automatic things for me to do. I would have to become a worse person to join your religion. So why would I want something that's going to make me worse than what I am already? where I have to lie to myself and lie to others, pretend to be something that I'm not. It would be easier to just be what I am, because the one who is in charge of everything knows exactly what I am, no matter what kind of front I can put on for anybody out here. That's the story that is told. I went to Sunday school, and they taught us all such things as that. But as a child, I was able to make judgments. And if those people teaching me that belief, what they said, they wouldn't have been so mean to the little children, myself included, as they were in Sunday school, where they're teaching us the love of Christ. The love of God. Humbug! And people don't like that. Well, what can they do about it? Show me by your life what you are. Be the city set on a hill, but you're not going to be that, because it's easier to do like you do, pray every morning, and then forget it. Mr. President, I will withdraw that motion.
The motion is withdrawn. Mr. Clerk, next motion.
Mr. President, Senator Jensen had an amendment, AM 1207. I have a note, Senator, you'd like to withdraw. I have nothing further, Mr. President.
AM 1207 is withdrawn. Members, we are on final reading. Please return to your seats. Mr. Clerk, the bill is LB 367A. Please read the bill.
Mr. President, Griswold Bill 367A, Senator Jansen, bill for appropriate funds to aid and carry number 367-100 is the first of 2007. Hereby appropriate $105 million in New York cash and FY 78 and $115 million in property cash and FY 78 and Department of Property such as active program ones to carry 367-100 levy for session 2007. No expenditures, permanent temporary salaries, per diems for state employees shall be paid from funds appropriated in this section.
All provisions of law relative to procedure having been complied with, the question is, shall LB 367A pass? All those in favor vote aye. All those opposed vote nay.
Mr. Clerk, please record.
Voting ayes: Adams, Aguilar, Avery, Burling, Carlson, Christensen, Cornett, Dubas, Engel, Erdman, Fisher, Flood, Friend, Fulton, Gay, Hanson, Harms, Heidemann, Howard, Hutkins, Johnson, Karpashek, Copeland, Cruz, Langenmeyer, Lathrop, Loudon, McDonald, McGill, Mines, Nankus, Nelson, Pauls, Pankin, and Persh, Chrysler, Roger, Chimick, Stuthman, Sinowicki, Wallman, White, and Whiteman. Voting no: Senator Chambers. Not voting: Senators Ashford, Rakes, Dirks, and Peterson. 44 A's, 1 nay, 2 present not voting, 2 excused to not voting, Mr. President.
LB 367A passes. While the legislature is in session and capable of
I haven't read this bill yet. I was a member of the Judiciary Committee, and despite all that, I haven't mastered what's in this bill, but I never have liked mandatory mediation, so I'm going to ask the Speaker a question about that because I had said that I would. Senator Flood, why would there ever be any mandatory mediation, even if it's just the initial set to?
Senator Flood, would you yield to a question?
Senator Chambers, the reason it's the way it is on page 35 in the amendment is in my hope, that the two parties will sit when there's not domestic violence allegations or concerns involved, that the two parents will sit in the same room with a mediator whose only job is to see if she can find common ground, in hopes that one or both of them will say, you know what, I will go through this, I'll give this a shot. They have no obligation to talk, and they have no obligation to actively participate. But the reason it says mandatory in here, it basically has them go to that first meeting and see if it's something that they can go forward with after the mediator, in the presence of both of them, describes the process she or he is going to employ in the mediation.
Now, suppose this person refuses to attend that first session.
There is no penalty. There is no sanction other than it is reported to the court that the party did not wish to participate in mediation.
So then the mediator becomes a tattletale. Yeah, you didn't come, so I'm going to tell on you. And that's what it boils down to. In my mind, that carries on the antagonistic relationship that exists. Let's get to this parenting plan now. Is it mandatory that people participate in that if they're contemplating a divorce?
What section are you looking at specifically?
I don't know. There's something in here about parenting plan, and I thought Senator Ashford said that the only thing mandatory is the parenting plan.
Well, the court, in the event that they can't find common ground between the two of them, will have to write a parenting plan. And basically, the end result in the dissolution of marriage with children involved is that there will be a parenting plan that goes beyond the Wilson versus Wilson guidelines that have every other weekend and every other holiday. The court has to look at the activities of the children, the health and welfare of the children. The court has the ability to get, well, it has it right now, but it's encouraged to get more creative in putting that together. And the idea is that during a mediation, with the mediator present, the two sides can work on a parenting plan and answer those questions so that more of a
Pardon me, will the court deliberately try to make it punitive because one of the parties did not want to participate at that first session, or maybe neither wanted, and so the court is not going to punish them both by putting in a vindictive parenting plan?
No, because the court has to receive the evidence to figure out how to craft a parenting plan, and still has to decide what's in the best interest of the children. I have no intention of having this be that the parent gets punished because they wish not to participate in mediation. Rather, it's my hope that they sit down at the mediation the first time and they say, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. She seems, or he seems, like a fair person, and the mediator is trained and credentialed under the Mediation Act in Nebraska. I have a lot of faith that these people can bring people to the table.
You're in that zone that I sometimes describe as wishing
1 minute.
and hoping and thinking and praying. We can talk at any time, so I won't carry this out for an extended period, but I want to know what a domestic intimate partner is.
A domestic intimate partner is anything from the boyfriend that's living with mom who has 3 kids to the new boyfriend, the ex-boyfriend that still
Can it
lives
be
in
a
the house.
boyfriend's boyfriend?
This bill doesn't create any rights that aren't available, that are currently prohibited by the Constitution. But
So if there are 2 people of the same sex and one of them has a child and one abuses the other, they're exempt from anything in this law. Is that correct? From this law. This law would not apply to them. Is that correct?
Well, I think if you look at the definition...
Time, Senator.
Saved by, I'm putting my light on again.
Oh, I bet
This
you
is too
are.
good.
Senator Burley.
Mr. President, members of the legislature, is Senator Whiteman anywhere near? He's approaching, so I will begin my comments. Senator Whiteman, are we still on your amendment?
Senator Whiteman, would you yield to a question?
I will.
Are we still on your amendment?
Are we still on my amendment?
Yes.
I think so.
Thank you. This amendment, that's all I have. This amendment should have been adopted a long time ago, but I guess people want to discuss the bill too. But I was at the Judiciary Committee hearing. I don't want to repeat everything Senator Ashford said, but I want to reemphasize some of it. We had a couple, both had been in the joint. Both of them had to pay child support. Both of them got out after a number of years and owed a tremendous amount of money. They started a cabinet-making business, and they were very good at it. A client gave them money with which to purchase supplies, wood, and all the other materials, and they put it in a bank account, and that's the worst thing they could have done because the state took it. So now, not only do they not have the job, they don't have the money that the client gave them with which to purchase the supplies. The state is the one saying that we're going to squeeze every nickel we can out of these people. I think it's worse than trying to get blood out of a turnip. When you get out of prison, they give you $100. I don't know if they give you any clothing or not, but you come out with virtually nothing. And to have this heavy debt hanging over you is all but totally overwhelming. And that is a situation where somebody is whipped before he or she even starts. And some do wind up going back to prison. If you are on a job and your wages are being garnished, the employer does not want to keep you there and go through that aggravation, so you lose the job, and it's hard enough to get one when you've been locked up anyway. So Senator Whiteman is dealing with a very harsh, stark reality. I'm a divorced man. I will never get married again. They couldn't have forced me into mediation either. But by the same token, they couldn't force anybody to take care of their children better than I took care of my children voluntarily. I do not want to see people who have had problems that put them in the penitentiary come out of that situation and not have a chance at life. The punishment should be deprivation of your liberty, which occurs when you're in prison. It should not carry on after that. The law does not require a person to commit a pointless act. It would be pointless for the state and the law of this state to continue those child support obligations at a level where they were before the person was locked up. When this woman got out of prison, they presumed that she had the same employability and would make the same amount of money she made before she went to prison, and her obligation was going to remain what it was before she went to prison, while she was in prison, and the assumption was that she would continue to make an income at the level prior to prison. That's how unreasonable, that's how illogical, that's how cruel this state behaves. I think what Senator Whiteman is offering is eminently fair. Nothing that we do is going to produce a perfect solution. But he is moving us away from something which I think is unconscionably reprehensible. And I support his amendment, although there are problems that I have with Senator Flood's bill, and we're going to talk about them. I will be much more favorably inclined to support that bill with Senator Whiteman's amendment than I would be without it. And I think that's all I'll say at this point. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the legislature, ordinarily I vote against any increases in fees or court costs because I don't think there ought to be cash register justice. Marriage and divorce are regulated by law. The Constitution even says who can be married and who cannot be married. That is heavy state regulation. I think general fund money ought to be used here. Either marriage is going to be regulated by the state or it's not. There are rights and privileges and responsibilities that accrue when a person enters the institution of matrimony. And I guess if somebody wants to leave that institution, maybe they ought to be happy to pay $50 to get out of jail. But I still have some problem with this. So at this point, I'll be not voting. Or I might vote no. Because the more I think about this, why, let me put it a different way. I don't like the mediation aspect of it. If part of this is going to go to make mediation available, I'm not for it. I don't believe in mediation as a cure-all. If people want to talk, then something of value can happen. If they don't, then forcing them into a room together will only make matters worse. My good friend Parson slightly misstated what the situation is when I was giving my fatherly lecture. You were not mandated to stay in your chair. When we're on final reading, If a bill is being debated, if amendments are being discussed, the person does not have to stay in his or her chair. If I say you've got to stay there, and I'm just so persuasive or so dominant that you start shaking and say, I guess I got to stay here, that's still a matter of choice. So the parson didn't have to stay here, but he was so enthralled, not appalled, he was so enthralled that there was an attraction between the seat of his britches and the seat of that chair, and he couldn't separate himself from the chair, and he stayed there and listened and was benefited thereby. In all seriousness, on this motion or this amendment, I do have mixed feelings about it. As Senator Flood pointed out, and Senator Shimmick probably did too, but I was kind of tied up in something when she was speaking, it is limited to the area that will be affected by this bill, divorces and dissolutions. I'd like to ask Senator Shimmick a question.
Senator Shimmick, would you yield to a question?
Certainly.
Senator Shimmick, what is a dissolution? And if you don't know, I'll ask one of the lawyers.
Ask one of the lawyers. I mean, I know, but I can't put it in legal terms. It means ending a marriage.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask Senator Lathrop a question.
Senator Lathrop, would you yield to a question?
Senator Lathrop, what is the difference between a dissolution and a divorce?
They're the same thing.
So I wish Senator Flood was here because I think he used both words.
You want me to speak for him?
Yes, yes.
I don't know. I don't know if it's in there twice. The two are synonymous terms, though, as it relates to an action to dissolve a marriage. You can call it a divorce action or you can call it a dissolution.
But all we're talking about really is divorce, a termination of the marriage relationship.
I think that the bill is broader than that. It can affect if you have a paternity action and you need to sort out who's going to parent the child and who's going to have
But this fee that he's talking about wouldn't apply to those actions. If I understood him, this $50 will apply only where a divorce is involved. Is that your understanding?
That's true.
Okay. Thank you. And that's why I have mixed emotions. I'm going to wait a while before I decide for sure. But in general, I'm not in favor of anything in the court system being paid by fees. The courts are creations of the state and the Constitution in some cases. The legislature can create others. But if you're going to make it a fee-based system of justice, then I'm not fully on board. But on this one, I'm thinking about it. Thank you, Mr. President.